I've always believed that having a dog in the house makes all the difference when you live alone. It's not just about companionship, it's about safety too. A dog's instincts are sharp. They notice things before you do. That's why when I moved out on my own, I made sure to get a dog that could both keep me company and protect me if I ever needed it. That dog was Jenny, my German Shepherd. She was loyal, protective, and always seemed to know when something wasn't right. When the house felt too quiet or too big, Jenny's steady breathing or the sound of her nails clicking across the floor made me feel less alone. She was family to me, more than just a pet. That night started so ordinarily that I didn't expect anything. I had spent most of the evening on the couch watching a show on my laptop while Jenny lay sprawled out on the rug, half asleep but always alert. Around midnight, I decided it was time to head to bed. I locked up the doors, checked the windows, and turned off the lights before climbing under the blanket. At first, everything was silent. Then, Jenny suddenly stood up. Her whole body went tense. Her ears shot straight up, and she turned toward the front door. I sat up in bed listening. A second later, there it was, a knock. I froze, unsure I had really heard it. Who knocks on your door at 1 a.m.? Jenny barked once, loud and deep, and then the knock came again, harder this time. I slid out of bed quietly and stepped into the hallway. From there, I could see the front door, but not who was outside. Jenny was already there, her body pressed close to the door, barking with a force that made my chest tighten. Then I heard a man's voice. "Delivery," he called out. "I just need you to come outside so I can take a photo as proof." Every word felt wrong. No delivery service comes at this hour. I hadn't ordered anything. My gut told me to stay silent, so I didn't respond. I hoped he'd realize he had the wrong house and leave. Instead, the knocks turned into pounding. Jenny growled so fiercely, I thought she might break the door down herself. The man raised his voice, more forceful now. "Come on, I just need you to step outside for a second." I backed into my bedroom, locked the door, and grabbed my phone with trembling hands. I dialed 911. The operator picked up quickly, asking what was going on. I whispered into the phone that someone was at my door pretending to be a delivery man, trying to get me to come outside. The dispatcher's calm voice told me to stay on the line, stay in my room, and keep quiet. Officers were already on their way. But while I was still on the call, things escalated. The pounding grew so violent that the door rattled against its hinges. Jenny was barking furiously, throwing her body at the door as if she knew what was about to happen. And then it did happen. The sharp crack of wood splitting rang through the house. My stomach dropped. He was breaking in. Jenny lunged forward as the door gave way. The sounds that followed were a blur of chaos. Her snarling, the man's grunts, the crash of furniture being knocked aside. I pressed myself against the wall, phone still to my ear, whispering every detail to the dispatcher. "He's inside! My dog's attacking him! Please hurry!" Then I heard it, a metallic clatter against the floor. The man had dropped something. But in the chaos, I realized it wasn't just anything. It was a knife. My heart felt like it stopped. The next sound cut deeper than anything else. Jenny yelped. My chest ached. I wanted to run to her, but the dispatcher begged me to stay in the room. Tears stung my eyes as I listened, helpless, while my dog fought for me. The man cursed, struggling with Jenny, and the house felt like it was shaking with every movement. I couldn't tell who was winning. I kept whispering into the phone, praying the police would get there in time. Then finally, the sound of sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flashed across the windows, painting the walls of my room. Shouts filled the house, commanding, powerful. "Police, drop it! Hands where we can see them!" The struggle shifted. Heavy footsteps stormed in. I heard the man scream, then the heavy thud of him being slammed to the ground. The clink of handcuffs snapped shut, and the fight was over. "Police, you're safe now," a voice called out, followed by a knock at my bedroom door. I opened it slowly, my legs weak and unsteady. 2 officers stood there, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Behind them, another officer had the man pinned to the floor in handcuffs. Jenny stood nearby, panting hard, her fur matted with sweat and streaked with blood. Her body shook, but her growl was still low and steady, as if she was daring him to try again. One officer crouched down, picking up the knife and slipping it into an evidence bag. The sight of it made my stomach twist. If Jenny hadn't been there, that knife could have been used on me. I rushed to Jenny, kneeling beside her. She leaned against me, her breathing heavy but steady. The officers assured me she had cuts, but nothing fatal. Relief hit me so hard, I almost broke down right there. When I asked about the man, the officers said something that still chills me to this day. They had run his information. No ID, no driver's license, no record at all. It was like he didn't exist. They took him away, leaving me in a house with a shattered front door and the echo of chaos still ringing in my ears. I sat on the couch with Jenny pressed against me, too shaken to move, let alone sleep. Every creak of the house felt like he was back. The rest of the night passed slowly, painfully slow. Jenny eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep at my side, but I stayed awake, staring at the door that was now just a hole covered with police tape. It's been a long time since that night, but the memory doesn't fade. I still check my locks 3 times before bed. I never open the door for strangers, no matter what they claim. And every time Jenny barks, even at nothing, I pay attention. Because that night, at 1 a.m., a stranger tried to trick me into stepping outside. And if it hadn't been for my dog and the quick arrival of the police, I might not be here to tell the story. Jenny saved my life.
I moved into my new house about 3 months ago. It was a quiet, suburban neighborhood, the kind where everyone keeps to themselves. Lawns are neatly trimmed, cars are parked perfectly in driveways, and you might only exchange a polite wave for the neighbor while getting your mail. My immediate neighbor to the right was a man, probably in his late 40s. I'd only seen him a few times, mostly when he was leaving for work early in the morning. He seemed quiet, maybe a little odd, but I figured he just valued his privacy and I was fine with that. It all started about 2 weeks ago. I was in my living room watching TV late one evening when I first heard it. It was faint but unmistakable. A woman's voice, high-pitched and full of panic, screaming, "Help me! Somebody, please help me!" My heart jumped into my throat. The sound was coming directly from my neighbor's house. It was followed by a muffled thud, and then silence. I turned the TV down, my ears straining to hear anything else. For about 10 minutes, there was nothing. I told myself it was probably just a bad argument. Couples fight and sometimes they yell. It wasn't my business. I tried to forget about it and went to bed. But it happened again 2 nights later. This time it was louder, more desperate. "Oh God, help! Let me go, help me!" The cry was so raw, it made the hairs on my arms stand up again. It was followed by a strange thudding sound, and then an unnerving silence. This time I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. I started paying more attention to the house next door. I work from home, so I have a clear view of his property all day. I saw him leave for work in his old sedan every morning and return every evening. He always came and went alone. I never saw a woman, not once. No car besides his ever parked in the driveway. No one ever visited. The screams continued to happen every couple of nights, always late and always with the same terrifying desperation. My mind started racing. If there was a woman in there, why had I never seen her? Was he keeping her prisoner? The thought made me sick to my stomach. Every time I heard her voice, I would freeze, my body tensing up. I felt like a coward for not doing anything. But what could I do? Call the police and say I heard a fight? They'd probably tell me to mind my own business unless I saw something. After another week of this, I couldn't take the guilt and anxiety anymore. I saw him outside watering his plants one Saturday morning and decided I had to say something. I walked over, forcing a friendly smile. "Morning," I said. "Just wanted to introduce myself properly. I'm Mark. I moved in a little while ago." He looked up a bit startled. "Oh, Right. I'm David, he said, not returning the smile. Hey, listen, I started, trying to sound casual. This is a bit awkward, but I've heard some shouting from your place a few times. I just wanted to make sure everything's all right with you and your wife. David's face went from neutral to confused, then to annoyed. My wife, he said sharply. I'm not married. I live alone, have for years. My blood ran cold. Oh, I said, my mind reeling. I'm sorry. I could have sworn I heard a woman's voice. You must be mistaken, he said flatly, turning back to his plants. There's no woman here. He was lying. I was sure of it. The terror in that voice was real. He was hiding someone. That was it for me. I went back inside, my hands shaking, and I called 911. I told the dispatcher everything, the screams for help, how I'd never seen a woman, and how the neighbor had just lied directly to my face about living alone. I told them I thought he might have kidnapped someone and was holding them against their will. Within 15 minutes, 2 police cars were parked in front of his house. I watched through my blinds as they knocked on his door. David answered, looking angry and agitated. After a few minutes of talking, he reluctantly let them inside. My heart was pounding. I watched them go from window to window, searching the entire house. This went on for what felt like an eternity. I expected them to come out with a woman, or maybe with David in handcuffs. Finally, after about 20 minutes, the officers came back outside, followed by David. But something was wrong. David wasn't in handcuffs. He was laughing. He was actually laughing. One of the officers walked over to me as I stepped out onto my porch. "Sir, are you the one who called?" he asked. "Yes," I said, completely confused. "Did you find her?" The officer sighed. "Well, we found the source of the noise. Why don't you come see for yourself?" He gestured for me to follow him over to his yard. David was still chuckling to himself, shaking his head. He led us to his back patio, and there, sitting in a large, ornate cage, was a huge macaw parrot, ruffling its vibrant green and blue feathers. As we all stood there, the parrot tilted its head, looked right at me, and in a perfect imitation of a terrified woman's voice, it shrieked, "Help me! Somebody, please help me!" I just stood there, speechless. My jaw was on the floor. David finally stopped laughing long enough to explain. He said he adopted him from a rescue a few years back. His previous owners had a really nasty relationship. The wife was always screaming for help during their fights. He just picked it up. He mimics her voice perfectly. The parrot let out another chillingly realistic cry for help, and I felt a wave of relief and utter embarrassment wash over me. For 2 weeks, I had been living in my own personal horror movie, convinced my neighbor was a monster, but the only monster was in my head. The police were professional, told me I did the right thing by calling, and reffed. I apologized to David, who just waved it off. I still hear the screams sometimes, even knowing it's just a bird. My heart still skips a beat, and I can't help but think about the real woman who used to scream those words, and how her terror is now living on, echoed forever by a parrot in a quiet suburban backyard.
When I was 12 years old, my family finally got our first dog. His name was Max, a golden retriever mix we adopted from the local shelter. He was about a year old, super friendly, and loved everyone in the house right away. At that time, I had the upstairs bedroom all to myself. It was small, but cozy, with a window looking out over the backyard. Max slept with me every night. He'd curl up at the foot of my bed, and I'd fall asleep to the sound of his soft breathing. It felt safe, like having a built-in protector. A couple of years later, things changed. My parents had another kid, a baby sister, and they needed my upstairs room for her nursery. They decided to move me down to the basement bedroom. It wasn't finished like a real room. The walls were concrete, painted white, but chipping in places, and the floor was thin carpet over cold cement. There was one small window high up on the wall that let in a bit of daylight, but mostly it was dim, even during the day. The stairs creaked every time you went down, and the air always smelled a little musty, like old newspapers or damp earth. My parents said it was fine, just needed some posters and a lamp to brighten it up. I wasn't thrilled, but I was 14 by then, so I didn't complain much. The first night in the basement, I called Max to sleep with me, like always. He followed me to the top of the stairs, but when I started down, he stopped. His ears perked up and he just stared into the darkness below. I tugged on his collar gently. "Come on, boy, it's bedtime." But he backed away, whining low in his throat. I thought maybe he was scared of the stairs. They were steep and narrow, so I carried him down. As soon as I set him in my room, he bolted to the door and started scratching at it, crying louder than I'd ever heard. It wasn't a playful whine. It was desperate, like he was terrified. I tried petting him, giving him treats, but nothing worked. He just paced by the door, eyes wide, until I finally let him out. He ran upstairs and slept on the couch instead. This happened every night. Max flat out refused to go into the basement. If I forced him, he'd cry and whine right next to the door until I gave in. My parents thought it was weird, but they brushed it off. "Dogs are picky sometimes," my dad said. "Maybe he doesn't like the cold down there." I started feeling uneasy about it, though. Why would he act like that? The basement wasn't that bad during the day, but at night, it got really quiet. Too quiet. I'd lie there listening to the house settle, creaks from the floor above, and sometimes, I don't know, faint scratching sounds from the walls, like nails on wood, but soft. I told myself it was mice or something. A couple of years passed, and I got used to sleeping alone down there. I was 16 now, and we decided to get another dog because Max was getting older and slower. We adopted Buddy, a young lab mix full of energy. I figured he'd be different. Maybe he'd keep me company in the basement since Max wouldn't. The first night, I took Buddy down with me. He seemed okay at first, sniffing around the room, but as soon as I closed the door and turned off the light, he froze. His hackles went up and he stared at the far corner of the room, the one opposite my bed, where the walls met in a shadow that the lamp never quite reached. Then he started barking, not a friendly bark, but deep, aggressive growls mixed with sharp yaps. He was fixated on that empty corner like something was there. I sat up in bed, heart pounding. "Buddy, what is it? There's nothing there." But he wouldn't stop barking. His eyes were locked on the spot, ears flat back, teeth bared. I turned on the light and the corner was just empty. Bare wall, a bit of dust on the carpet, nothing else. No bugs moving, no shadows moving. But he kept barking for a good 5 minutes until I opened the door and let him out. He shot up the stairs like a rocket and wouldn't come back down. This became a pattern with Buddy, too. He hated the basement from the very beginning. If I tried to make him stay, he'd cry, claw at the door, and bark at that same empty corner. It freaked me out. What was he seeing that I couldn't? I started noticing other weird things down there, like the temperature would drop randomly. I'd be reading in bed and suddenly the room would feel 10 degrees colder, even in summer. Goosebumps all over my arms. And the air, it felt heavy sometimes, like someone was breathing in the room with me. One night, I heard footsteps, not from upstairs, but like soft padding on the carpet in my room. I was half asleep, eyes closed when it started. Steps coming closer to my bed. I bolted upright, flipped on the light, nothing. The door was closed and no one was there, but my heart was racing so hard I couldn't sleep for hours. I checked the window. It was locked, too high for anyone to climb in anyway. After that, I started leaving a nightlight on. Then there were the objects moving, small stuff at first. I'd leave my phone on the nightstand, wake up, and it'd be on the floor across the room, or my backpack zipper would be open when I knew I'd closed it. I blamed myself, maybe I was forgetful, but deep down I knew better. One time I found scratches on the inside of my closet door, thin lines like from fingernails. The closet was just shelves and clothes. No way I did that. The dog's reactions made it worse. Even during the day, if I brought Buddy down to play, he'd whine and pull toward the stairs. Max wouldn't even step foot on the first stair anymore.
They'd both bark at the basement door from upstairs, sometimes out of nowhere, like they heard something I didn't. I started researching online about why dogs act like that. Some sites said dogs can sense mold or gas leaks, things humans miss. So I begged my parents to check. Dad got a carbon monoxide detector. It was fine. No mold visible, no pests. But the creepy stuff kept happening. Whispers. Yeah, I heard them once. Late at night, faint murmuring like a voice too low to make out words coming from that empty corner. I froze under the covers, straining to listen. It stopped when I turned on the light, but sleep? Forget it. The worst night was about a month after getting Buddy. I was alone in the house. My parents took my sister to a family thing. I tried to sleep early, but around midnight, both dogs started going nuts upstairs, barking, growling, and scratching at the basement door. I went up to calm them, but they were staring down the stairs, first standing on end. "What is it, guys?" I hissed. Then I heard it, a thump from below, like something heavy falling in my room. I grabbed a flashlight and went down, dogs refusing to follow. My room looked normal at first, door closed, bed made, but the closet door was ajar. I swear I shut it before leaving. Heart in my throat, I pushed it open. Inside, on the floor, was a shoe, not mine, an old dirty sneaker, kid-sized, covered in dust. Where did it come from? I picked it up, and something fell out. A folded paper. It was a drawing. Crayon scribbles of a house and a stick figure family, but one figure was crossed out in black marker violently. I freaked out, ran upstairs and locked the basement door. The dogs calmed down once I was up there. I showed my parents the shoe and the drawing when they got home. They were confused. They said maybe it was from the previous owners, hidden in the walls or something. The house was old, built in the 70s. Dad checked the closet, found a loose panel in the back wall. Behind it was a small crawl space, empty except for insulation and cobwebs. Probably just old junk that fell through, he said. But why now? And why did the dogs hate it so much? We sealed the panel, threw out the shoe. Things got quieter after that, no more thumps or whispers, but the dogs still won't go down there. I moved out for college last year, and honestly, I don't miss that basement.